I'm Kate Rung. I'm the co-founder and COO of PingMe, an open financial data platform built on the promises of open banking for financial inclusion. CGAP states that open banking regimes can be parsed into three distinct data sharing practices. Firstly, there's open banking, which is the exchange of consumer data between banks and other financial service providers with the express consent of the consumer. There is open data, which is the exchange of data between private sector financial institutions and non-bank financial institutions, such as utilities, mobile money issuers, and telcos. Lastly, there are open APIs, which are proprietary APIs that a financial services provider makes available for other companies to consume, allowing these other companies to seamlessly plug into the financial services provider's system. In order to truly serve the excluded, financial service providers, regulators, and non-bank financial institutions must embrace a broad scope of data sharing, inclusive of both financial data as well as non-traditional data, such as mobile money data, utility data, and device data where available. By combining these three data sharing regimes, you can begin to serve the many as opposed to the few, truly harnessing the power of open banking. Open banking makes it possible for data to become portable. This concept puts data ownership back in the hands of the consumer, allowing the consumer to choose with whom they share their data. There are challenges specific to Nigeria's financial ecosystem that will require deep collaboration across financial institutions, technologists, and legislative bodies. However, progress is being made as just 1 week ago today, the CBN issued their first regulatory framework for open banking.
For most commercial banks, providing financial services at the last mile, especially for the poor, is very expensive and potentially not profitable for a commercial bank. Not every bank will go and invest large amounts of money to set up bank branches in rural areas, in the fringes of the urban areas where there isn't enough money, and therefore servicing those kind of customers can prove really, really expensive for a commercial bank. Now, if you flip it, virtually everybody you know that is a working adult belongs to one trade group or the other, belongs to one religious community or the other, belongs to one association or the other that have direct connection to them, as an example. Now, if it is expensive for a bank to reach and serve these people, but then there are already communities that reach them on a daily basis, are able to provide other services that they can do on their own small scale, for example. Now, in the advent of open banking and types of organizations or groups that are able to reach people at the grassroots, will be able to take financial services from commercial banks, whether in VI or Marina, and manage to get it to the vulcanizer in Kotangora, for instance. Now, the tools required to make that happen, the infrastructure required to make that happen is only is only practically achievable when it is possible for such types of organizations or groups or trade unions or communities to be able to tap into a uniform layer of distribution from different commercial banks. I think for me, this is one example in where when we can point to the presence of open banking or the availability of open banking can help to drive financial inclusion. An open banking layer in any economy can actually activate some of the financial inclusion objectives that we have as a group of people.
Open banking engenders service innovation. It creates motivation of all the major participants in the ecosystem, the banks, the consumers, and other service providers. We keep asking ourselves, what exactly do we regard as fintech, financial technology companies? In CBN, we see financial technology companies as any technology company or any company, so to speak, or institution that uses technology to provide financial services. So open banking has the potential to fundamentally reshape the value chain, competitive landscape, and customer experience, especially in retail banking, and also in corporate banking. We need to work with the banks and work with the financial technology companies is to give impetus to data sharing. Financial inclusion is very strong and is a major objective that the central bank is driving for the government. Knowing that financial inclusion is not just a CBN strategy, it's actually a national strategy. But CBN is in the forefront driving this. And from our own domain, we need to provide all the necessary ingredients that will be used to facilitate financial inclusion, of which open banking will be one.
What would be some of the top measures that the CBN needs to take to ensure a very smooth transition to the use of open banking across the country?
The three basic ingredients that we all need to work together to strengthen the open banking regulation and to make it very effective for every one of us. In the framework that we have just issued, in there we requested that we're going to work together with the ecosystem, major stakeholders, to develop the API standards. We need to have standards. Without standards, interoperability will be very difficult. We need to all agree on certain minimum requirement for connectivity, who should connect, and all that. In addition to that, central bank will also maintain a registry of entities that are actually licensed by us. Anyone who wants to participate in the open banking space to come and provide the details and all that, so that when the banks do a check, they can see that this entity is actually within the purview of the regulator and all that. And I also talked about risk mitigation in terms of who bears the risk. Risk mitigation is very important, which is why keeping that registry to ensure that only entities that are within our purview can actually connect to banks and use the API, and also making sure that market conduct is well respected. All the various guidelines on payment system in Nigeria are well respected in terms of connectivity, interoperability, dispute resolution management, and all that. And the third one has to do with the dispute management help desk. The fintechs also have to provide stuff, because they will now basically be filtering those consumer issues, from the banks. They are in the front line. The consumers, we approach them first, and the fintechs will then distribute those, issues back to the banks where they got this information from. So these are the three major success factors that will drive and enhance our open banking principle in Nigeria.
I'm curious to hear, Ronke, your opinion on what some ways are in which we can deepen access to financial services in the country.
I think agency banking is one of the best ways of doing this. In fact, almost the easiest way of doing this. And so that's really responsible for the creation of SANEF in the first place. Another way is reliable technology. It's very, very key. It's not even enough to just have agents out there. You need technology to assist. Really simple, reliable technology. And what you need technology for is, one, is to open accounts. And we also need technology to access financial products, financial products at this location. Also, I believe that should also enable the fintechs to give credit to the potential customers as well who may want it through the technology. Availability of banking 24/7 cannot be overemphasized as well through technology, and the convenience of ease of banking that has been brought about as well. Another thing that has helped is the financial literacy and campaign awareness. So it's very, very key for the customers or for the potential account holders or the unbanked to know the reason why it is important to start with opening an account or a wallet. Another important aspect that has helped is the environment, the ability to create an enabling environment for the agents to thrive. Another aspect which is very key and which has helped us in the last, I would say, 2 years is collaboration. I mean, there's been a lot of collaboration in the last 2 years between, in the industry generally, between the banks, the super agents, the MMOs, the international organizations that have come into Nigeria who have interest in financial inclusion. So generally, and I'd say that even in doing that, we also should include the state governments who may want to use agent banking to empower their people. We can also add, the law enforcement agents for them to understand what is going on as well in the industry. Those are the low-hanging fruits that we can use immediately. Thank you.
By how much does the bank, and in this case we're referring to your bank, which is Access Bank, currently provide open APIs to external parties? And do you genuinely think that there's room for improvement with, how much that's being done today?
So, we're bands that really very strong in partnerships, in openness, in collaboration. And the whole idea is let's bake a bigger cake. Innovation can't be the premise of just one person. It's all of us that are part and parcel of that. And we have an outpost that we call Africa FinTech Foundry. Africa FinTech Foundry is well out of Access Bank. It's on its own. And the whole idea there is that any innovator from outside in can come in and innovate with us, basically, and or take the innovation elsewhere. It's not locked down to us. It's more about the general good of the society. The innovation does not have to be banking. I know we're speaking primarily about banking. And one of the very interesting things, and I'm very pleased my brother Musa spoke about it, is around risk management. And that's one area we've been able to add real value as well. So quite a number of areas where we're helping. Lots of areas for improvement, API performance, scalability. And for me, really, the biggest one I keep harping about has to be security. Most of the fintech companies we have today will go bust if they don't take security seriously. Yeah, they will go bust. You can be damn sure that if it was a sector measured in the economy, the fastest growing sector in any economy in the world today will be that of fraud, digital fraud. And I can assure you, we see this every day. The tools and the investments going in there is so phenomenal. And that's one area where, again, our bank can assist and help wherever possible, and indeed we need to work on as a community.
What do you see as the greatest benefits of open banking for Nigeria as a whole?
Specifically for this country, is the opportunity for an incredible amount of collaboration between the banks and the fintechs to create amazing products and services. And by that, I mean, other than speaking about financial inclusion, we really need to now look at social inclusion. We talked about collaboration, understanding risk and risk mitigation, understanding the challenges that the central bank will have in trying to take this on. It's something that I've seen as we worked with other regulators in other countries. It's a big task, but nevertheless, they're going ahead with it, but also understanding the importance of standardization and the need of API standards and data standards are huge. So the ability for Nigeria to take on those international standards will only help in its journey from open banking to open finance to open data or OpenX, because they will have the key structures needed to be able to communicate with other countries as they embark in open banking.
If open APIs in Nigeria are fused with Moya Loop, what sort of impact do you think this will have for financial inclusion and the Gates Foundation's dream of bringing prosperity to poor and vulnerable in Africa?
Before I answer specifically, let me just briefly articulate the problem we are trying to solve in Nigeria, but also across Africa. And it's really three things from the perspective of the very poor unbanked, which were already mentioned: enabling access to the poor to accounts and wallets. Secondly, its usage. So once they have a account or wallet, how can we make sure that they are being used and not only, as Ope said at the very beginning, being simply used for cash out? And third, the problem of gender inequality. And we know that financial inclusion is also about reducing the gender gap in access to financial services. So these three things are the problem we are trying to solve in Nigeria. Open banking is part of this solution. It will not solve the problem on its own. To solve the problem, we need to, and as Ronke said, put technology to work. Part of the issue is also that there is a need for a payment platform that is very efficient and interoperable, so that there is a enabling platform for accessing and using these services from the perspective of the consumer. So this is where Moya Loop is positioned. It is an open source software that simply acts as an accelerator to build interoperable payment platforms, or to add to existing interoperable platforms to enable open banking scenarios to happen. Open banking has two basic use cases. One is what we told already quite a lot about, which is about account aggregation. Open banking is also about a different scenario, which is I call payment initiation, which is the capacity to initiate a payment from on behalf of the consumer. Moja is part of this picture. It provides an accelerator to either build such an environment using open APIs and standardized APIs and interoperability, or enhance an environment such as the one that exists in Nigeria already, which is interoperable with additional use cases, including payment initiation.
So yeah, thank you for that. Do you think a situation where all Nigerian banks providing individuals transaction history in similar formats could sort of jumpstart easier access to credit scoring information and ultimately access to financial services, and even on top of that, collectively increase our GDP?
Open banking will go a long way to allow me to give the customer access to all his financial data in one place, right? So you can make informed decisions. It will give banks richer data to understand the ability to pay from a better perspective. Now they don't have to rely on the customer to, for example, you don't have to rely on the customer to give you information about where his funds are, but you can actually pull them. I think where open banking will help is using not just financial data, but non-financial data, to put in non-financial data from other third parties who are involved to take richer information. Because when it comes to lending, there are two sides. There's ability to pay and willingness to pay. Ability to pay is the financial capability. Willingness to pay is, when it's time to pay and you don't have the cash in your bank, are you ready to liquidate one of those assets that you have to make good your credibility? And I think that's where open banking will help, if it's not just open just for individuals. But then, of course, you have rule of law. I mean, there are many other information silos that you actually need to break before you can make informed decisions. And the problem is that we don't have enough information data right now to make those informed decisions, even if they have no money there. Because in the end, you want to be able to lend to people even if they don't have money in their bank account, but you also want to be able to lend at a price point that they will be willing to pay back. Because the more data you have, the more information you have, and financial and non-financial, the less the risk, because you have more certainty the person will pay back. And so that's where we need to go take open banking to. So it's not just about banks sharing, but it's also about bringing all those data sets, the data capturing sets, into this open banking tribe, so that individuals and service providers can make better informed decisions in providing transaction and creating customer experience, whether it's lending or whether it's actually bringing and incentivizing people to come into, to be included. Because it's not about financial inclusion, it's about, I need to get an identity, I need to be socially included, and then I need to be able to access, because if I can't be financially included, if I don't have enough money, at least the government can actually pay me my pension or pay me my palliative, and that's an incentive to be part of this whole system. So there are a lot of moving parts, but I think it's the private and public sector working together to drive it. And this initiative by the central bank is one big step for us to start actually now putting these things together.
Do you think SANEF would have witnessed the same level of growth if you didn't have these interoperable APIs right from the start? And then also, are you thinking about some additional levels of standardization between the agents and the financial ecosystem as a whole?
In terms of where we are today and where we would have been if we didn't have what we call the SANEF technology platform, we would have been nowhere, to be quite honest. Like you said, most the super agents or the MMOs would have had to go to all the banks, one by one, to be able to integrate with them, which would have taken forever, and which was what we met on ground when we came on board about 2 years ago. So having the platform has definitely helped, and I think that having the platform has also increased the level of awareness in terms of agent banking and being able to be used for financial inclusion. I think where we are today, I mean, initially what we did in the first 2 years was to focus on making sure we together with the super agents and the NMOs on board over 500,000 agents. Let's have that as the starting point. And now what we're focusing more on is move away from just the basic products of cash in, cash out to other products. And in order to be able to do this, obviously we need to onboard, we need to move to the phase 2, which is to get more into this ecosystem, more of the relevant parties in the ecosystem on the platform as well. And in doing that, obviously we have to standardize this. And part of the products that we would like to bring on board would involve, for example, premiums, insurance premiums being paid at agent locations, loan collections being done, loans being given out as well from other parties that are not necessarily financial institutions. So those are the things we're looking at bringing quite a number together to be able to provide the products that are really relevant to the unbanked. And I believe that, we've been talking about open banking today. I believe that really should help us in achieving what we want to achieve. But that's the next phase. The next phase for us is deepening, not just going there to get, of course, we're not stopping at the 580,000. We're going to continue, but we need to make sure that we have all the products that will allow financial inclusion to actually take place and allow all these people that are out there to be included. And that would involve all of us and involve a platform that should onboard everyone, even without, not just the financial institutions. Thank you.
At the beginning, Okwe shared some information about how there's an intersection between financial services and open banking. And she's curious to hear your views on how the regulation can facilitate better trade groups and say churches, for example, to participate in open banking and by extension, extend the reach of financial inclusion.
Very humbly, I would say that maybe looking at the potential that Nigeria has, that it should consider, since it's right in the middle of the framework of expanding to open finance to be able to tackle some of these things. I think people are waking up more and more to the opportunity of what open means, and the fact that we can benefit trade groups or churches or so many other segments by enabling open. Something that my colleague here, Uzoma, said that I thought was very, very important is that everyone needs to understand that the sharing of data shouldn't be seen as a risk to financial institutions. The sharing of data will only enrich the movement and the initiative, and it will only make products and services even better for the consumer and even for the financial institutions themselves, which we must again continue to talk about sensitizing and educating that the financial institutions themselves can consume the data. So, again, the more collaboration, whether you call it financial inclusion or more, if it's broader than that, but anything we can do to further share data will only create a much richer ability for all kinds of different groups to benefit from this. Unfortunately, with open banking, there may be some indirect limitations as to how a church may or may not be able to benefit as a group. It may be that directly with open banking, it'll be through payment services or other abilities. But when we look at it from an open finance perspective, you can now start seeing where other trade groups and any other kind of groups can start benefiting from enriched data coming from cross sectors. So again, I don't think it's a limitation, but I do wish that Nigeria at some point would move from an open banking to an open finance, because it has that capability and everything it needs to be able to do so.
How does the CBN intend to drive some level of sensitization across banks and essentially make sure that it isn't being unfairly gated?
The first step is the issuance of the framework, which have circulated in public domain, so the banks are aware of the principle that central bank has established and all that. For the CROs, I don't know, we are not dictating to the banks the kind of arrangement they have within their own institution, the process for granting the API. What we specify is standardization. The way I connect, the way FinTech A connects to Bank A should be the same way FinTech B connects to Bank B. So once I know the API requirements and specifications, I can develop my application and it should fit in. That's all.
Yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the panel. I just want to say huge thank you. Like this has been like a very impressive and knowledgeable set of individuals, and I'm really thankful that you were all able to make the time. We're signing off from here, and I'll hand over to Okwe to just close the session for us, and we can all head out.
I would like to say a very big thank you to all of the participants who have made time to join. I think for me, a parting shot I would like to throw in here, and many of us at Open Banking Nigeria sort of echo this as well. In every market where you have seen the semblance of open banking and open APIs take off, it has always been to the benefit of the market in the long run. Be it UPI in India, PSD2 or open banking in Europe and the UK. Ultimately, the market was better off for it. The banks were better off for it. So we think that ultimately the sun, let me get a little bit philosophical, is rising in Nigeria now. And the fact that the open APIs and open banking guidelines have sort of come out, we can only assume that the end will be as good as what we've seen in India and other parts of the world. Once again, thank you very much. And let's go include everybody in financial services in Nigeria.